And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and it's a Marvel thing, and a superhero thing, and a VR thing, so I'm gonna talk about it. We're talking about Iron Man VR. It's a PlayStation VR exclusive Marvel title that truly makes you feel like Iron Man. No, I'm sorry, I'm just memeing. This is likely one of the last big Sony-backed PSVR games, though, for this PSVR generation. You know, it's flexing the Marvel name and budget pretty strong, and VR people like me are kind of always clamoring for superhero experiences or attempts. There have been some hits and some misses, but the concept of being Iron Man through VR just makes sense, you know? It's a good fit, and I'm glad this is finally a thing. Still, this game, Iron Man VR, is kind of a rough experience. You know, it's an okay game, but with great moments. It's got some issues, and also just kind of feels like we're reaching the limits of what console VR can kind of push. At least, blowing stuff up is fun. The game itself is pretty flawed, but still fun. That's in a nutshell already. Spoilers. And as a PC-based VR person mainly, I hope eventually it comes to other platforms. Still, I'm mixed on it. Let me explain. Iron Man VR is an adventure based around like 12 missions focusing on, of course, Tony Stark. In some ways, coming to grips with his weapons manufacturing past, it's told through his eyes, of course, especially when the helmet goes down over your face. It's really cool, but I digress. But it's also narrated by him, and then Ghost is kind of the main villain from the jump, bringing up Tony's past weapons manufacturing sins and using his past mistakes and drones he designed against him in the world. You visit various locations around the world and build up your suit. You save people, you solve light VR-style puzzles like disabling an electrical panel or ripping open a door, and of course, you fly around freely and blow stuff up. That's the main thing. This game, though, I will say, and maybe you were like me seeing the trailers, it makes a bad first impression. It's pretty rough looking at spots, and it can be distracting for VR. You know, I can already see comments saying that it looks like a mobile game, especially because the HUD is a little much, but I do think most VR games don't translate as well to video, though. I mean, I captured this on a PS4 Pro, but sometimes my footage just never looks good when I capture VR. I don't know. I think I just move my head around way too much, but this game does look substantially better when it's strapped on your face, I swear. Still not amazing, though. You know, when you're flying, don't stop and look around and look at anything up close. Again, that's hardware limitations. Little details, though, like solid music and little bits of effects and visuals, but great use of audio coming from different directions, like a character whispering in your ear, or even water droplets dinking on the helmet. Like, that stuff definitely heightens and makes the visuals feel a little better, and I appreciate that. Gameplay-wise, the biggest challenge to making an Iron Man game, I feel, is making it fun to fly and shoot. That's incredibly ambitious if you think about it. You know, Iron Man flies and propels himself forward with thrusters on his feet and his hands, which is complex piloting, you know, while also managing an arsenal of weapons from his hands, his wrists, his shoulders, his chest. How can you make that easy and translate that into a fun video game VR experience? Well, Camouflaj, the developers, they certainly tried, and they really went for it. And I think it actually turned out better than expected in this department. I had extremely low expectations after seeing the videos and the trailers for the game, but the flight and combat can be fun. So using triggers on the Move controllers, you accelerate. Hold your hands in front of you and, you know, press them, and Iron Man will fly backwards. Point your hands at the ground, and you'll accelerate upward. So you know where this is going. Put your arms behind you and accelerate, and you'll shoot forward. So, like, they really went for it. And when you take the time to kind of get used to it, it can be fun, flying around buildings or high in the sky or skirting the water or whatever. You use a combination of thrusting with your hands with the triggers, aiming with your head a little bit, and using the face buttons on the controller for harder shifts in direction. So a lot of the time, you're playing it more like a straight-up video game than just like a hokey VR experience. And me personally, as much as I'm a big VR fan, I do have a tendency to get motion sickness sometimes, even with like experience and being a veteran, but this game I had no issues whatsoever. And there's some good moments to be had with the flight, you know, thrusting sideways and boosting out of your hands to dodge an attack, or weaving in and out of buildings once you start to get good. I like that stuff. It's not without frustrations though. You know, wielding weapons with it all never feels quite perfect. You switch between palms up for the standard Iron Man blast from his hands, and palms downward to then shoot, like, say, smart rockets or whatever weapon you choose from your wrist gauntlets. And that is very cool weapon switching in practice. But between managing that and flying at the same time, with the tracking and the PSVR move controllers giving me issues here and there, it had moments of getting a little annoying and goofy. There are moments where you're flying, you're blasting, and you're dodging, and it works great. But every so often, you'll lose track or mess something up, and then you're stuck on the ground in the corner of a building staring at a texture or flailing your arms around frantically. And it's really rough for smaller accuracy type stuff, like slowing down and landing exactly where you need often feels not good because the game is more designed for speed. The better you get with the game, though, you just have a better sense of what you can pull off. Like, there is a learning curve, but there's still just moments, even when you're experienced, that it can feel kind of awkward. One thing you can do is kind of like a charge punch or charge ground pound, and it was a feature that I just never really liked the feel of, and I never ended up using it because I didn't want to get up close and personal with enemies. I wanted to fly around and shoot them with rockets, damn it. Now, some of that awkwardness is partially the design of the game, and like I said, partially just small annoyances with the PSVR hardware itself, which has its problems here and there, but otherwise, like, I'm a fan of the device as a PSVR enthusiast. I've gone on record saying I think the PSVR is pretty well made for what it is. But moving on, one of the best selling points in the game is like this early mission where you save Pepper Potts from a plane crash. You've probably seen the video or the trailer. I'm showing it a lot here. It's incredible. And it's a good one because the game keeps you in the air for the scene. You just kind of have to maneuver around the plane. You don't have to worry about hitting the ground or crashing into anything or having any of those awkward moments I explained earlier. You know, moments like this in the game are incredibly fun and cinematic, and the game really accomplishes its mission there. The game really nails the big Iron Man moments you're looking for. Clever little details in the environment too, like news stories of Stark Industries flashing before your eyes, flying over and around skyscrapers, seeing Stark Tower, coming in for a landing at your Malibu mansion, painting targets and shooting on lock-on missiles, blasting that unibeam out of your chest, and then Easter eggs and stuff. There's so much cool stuff. The characters that show up, the nods to the bigger Marvel Comics universe, there are buildings and billboards referencing companies and places you know from the comics and stuff. All of that stuff really is just great to experience. And it makes up for a plot that tries and has its moments, but is really pretty predictable, and you can see it coming from a mile away, save for a few surprises here and there. I love the individual moments more than the actual plot itself. I didn't really care much. Seeing the SHIELD helicarrier for the first time with my own eyes was like awe-inspiring, and I said, wow, out loud. It makes up for the fact that I wasn't super into Tony Stark really, or the voice actor. You know, Josh Keaton is fantastic in other roles, but here I didn't really connect. Maybe that's me personally. You know, is it a Robert Downey Jr. copycat? No. Was there a Tony Stark before Robert Downey Jr.? Yes, there was. But whatever the game is trying to do, it just fell a little flat for me. Still, the gameplay is where most of my enjoyment was, like I said, and ramping up the difficulty and practicing can be fun because the game really kind of supports it. The game understands there's a learning curve and is forgiving enough to be fun, but gives you the time to really figure it all out, and then the intensity can make it more fun. There are multiple difficulty modes and a map you can access just to, you know, fly around an individual map that you want to load up with no objectives, or do training time trial runs for speed and combat. Also, there is an upgrade system. While exploring your garage and getting mission briefs, you can look at your suit, you can change the paint job, you can unlock different perks and weapons for your wrists. You can only equip so much, and it doles it all out generously, so it's a bit limited, but you can have multiple loadouts, and I appreciate that it's there, and you can customize things a little bit, like how you like to play or what weapons you like to use. They did it. Still, more issues. You know, I had the game crash on me a few times. I had issues, like I said, with the move controllers, particularly when grabbing stuff, and the loading times are really, really long. It sounds corny to say, like, it breaks my immersion, but it does definitely put a damper on the party, man. There are long loading screens mid-mission sometimes, and long sequences where you're just sitting in the dark in VR, staring at black nothingness in front of you while the game loads up. it can get pretty tedious, and I found myself waiting around for the game a lot, enough for it to be noticeable. I usually don't bring up things like this. Now, it's a game that still does get better the more you put into it. You know, like I said, you can replay levels, you can fly around freely, and live out your Iron Man dream with that, and some cool action sequences. You just need to put up with technical issues, a predictable story, some really generic enemy types, and occasional control awkwardness. But dealing with those problems is sometimes redeemed by the moments where you pull off a perfect shot, or fly tightly around a perfect corner, or catch Pepper Potts falling from an airplane, or high-fiving Nick Fury. So you see what I'm getting at? I'm really 50-50 on this game. If it sounds like I was hard on it, I want you to know there's still some good fun here. And if you have PSVR, you might be starving for a new experience. This one isn't like the end-all be-all at all, but I think it can be worth your time, especially if you really like Iron Man. I know that's like a stupid thing to say. I feel like everybody likes Iron Man, but still, it's not a full-priced experience. And I think that definitely at least helps if you want to try. But also, there was a demo, so yeah. That's where I'm at, but of course this is a before you buy. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. What comic book hero, superhero, whoever, would you think would translate to a VR headset? Also, if you are playing Iron Man VR like I have for the past few days, I'd love to know how you feel about it. How are you feeling with the controls? What are some of your big favorite moments from the game? Let's talk. Let's have some fun. If you enjoyed this video though and maybe learned something, clicking the like button helps us out a ton and we really appreciate it. And if you're new, consider subscribing, man, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.